You're listening to Becoming More Me, the podcast for high achieving entrepreneurs and professionals who want to be more and do less. I'm your host, Theresa Levine. I'm an EFT master practitioner, hypnotherapist, and international best-selling author. And today I am super excited to bring to the show Allie Brooke. She's a powerhouse blend of educator, emotional intelligence coach, podcast host, and personal growth guide. And she has a refreshingly real take on healing and self-development. She's also the voice behind the Growth Mindset Gal podcast. And she has dedicated her work to helping women overcome anxiety, perfectionism, and people-pleasing by cultivating resilience from the inside out. I can so resonate with all of that. She's not just teaching this work, she's lived it. And from battling chronic anxiety and burnout to now creating safe, supportive spaces for transformation, Allie's story is one of aligned evolution. So whether she's guiding a client, teaching in a classroom, recording an episode of her podcast, or just enjoying being outdoors, one of her favorite things, she brings heart, humor, and serious insight to all the things that she's involved in. So if you've ever felt like your anxiety was running the show, or if you've had to earn your worth through perfection, and I know my audience, I know you guys resonate with this because I talk about it so often too, this conversation is going to feel like a breath of fresh air. Let's dive in with the incredible Allie Brooke. It all starts now. Allie, I'm so glad you could join me today on Becoming More Me. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Teresa, so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Absolutely. So, can you just tell us a little bit about you? Not necessarily like the typical bio stuff. I want to hear like who you like spending your time with, maybe some favorite hobbies or things you like to drink or any weird, wacky facts you want to share.
Ooh, okay, that's fun. Because usually everyone's like, okay, tell us who you are and what you do. So, my name is Allie Brooke, and let's see, any fun, weird facts that I would love to share. Well, one of my favorite things ever is just to be outside. I love being outside and getting that sunlight. I love being surrounded by nature. And because it brings me like so much peace that like I always love fresh air too, like even because I'm a teacher by day, and I have the windows open like all the time. I always want that fresh air. I always want to be like listening to the birds chirp and having that sunlight. And it just when I'm outside, I don't know about you, and you probably feel the same. It just makes me feel free and like connected with like my true like core human self as being outside in the sun and loving every minute of it.
Yes, I love being outside too. I don't like it when it's too hot though. So
I see. I thrive in the hotness. I'm like, give
you
it to
know,
me.
I like melt and pass out. So you all the heat. We were at Disney the other week of the family, and I swear the Animal Kingdom day was so hot. My son and I were
Oh,
both like, we're both gonna pass out if we're here any longer.
oh my
When
God. Yeah, the heat wave was not fun. I will say when the heat wave hit New York, I was like poolside, so it was manageable. But yeah, if I was like in Animal Kingdom, I would have been unwell. I will accept that.
yeah. So where exactly do you live?
I live actually in upstate New York where it's like filled with nature, ironically, because I used to live on Long Island. I even worked in New York City, and that was like that hustle and bustle lifestyle. And I realized that it made me feel very heavy and like super anxious all the time to be in kind of that hustle and bustle. So about 2 years ago, I actually moved to upstate New York. My fiance's family lives in the Capital District area. And the reason that we moved upstate was for that like lifestyle change of like a little bit of a slower pace, being able just to have access to like beautiful nature. I mean, I think a couple of days ago, I was like outside all day. I was in the Catskill Mountains and I was like paddleboarding. And I was like, this is why. This is why I
Yes.
moved upstate for this reason to just be surrounded by beauty all the time. And it was a big life change, but it was like that core innate feeling that like I need to move up here.
hmm Yeah, it's a beautiful area. I can see why you would want to live there for sure.
Mhm.
Now, you're a teacher and you're also
Mhm.
a coach. Which came
Yes.
first?
Ooh, teaching actually came first. And the reason I became a teacher because I love helping people reach their fullest potential and be there with like the learning and growing and processing journey. And learning new skills is like, I didn't realize it at the time, but it's one of my favorite things to do. And then help people also have it be their favorite thing to do. Because I essentially, at the core, I believe that like learning and education, like that is the core, like human nature of like we love exploring and learning and curiosity. And I also feel like learning and education and processing like that gives us our power. Like knowledge gives us power. That's always been like a core belief of mine. So teaching came first and I love it wholeheartedly. And then we had we not kind of, but we had the 2020, pandemic with
Sure.
COVID and we were remote teaching. And so I
Okay.
was on like, Zoom or Google Meets all day. And it became like what the fun of the teaching of the connecting and the sharing stories and the things like that went away. And it felt just very like obviously we're going through a huge like traumatic event like globally. It was like this huge movement and it really impacted me, with my mindset, even my emotions as well. And so I was like listening to a lot of podcasts at that time. And so as I was listening to podcasts, I was like, I feel like one of the ways I learn the best and why I love being a teacher is I feel like people learn the best from sharing stories at the end of the
Yes.
day. Like it's not that open up the textbook and like read 5 pages and answer questions. It's like the critical thinking, it's the discourse, it's the debating and sharing different things. And so when I was listening to podcasts, I was like, I had that like little whisper, that like little intuition whisper of like, you can do something like this because it's still in your wheelhouse of skills of teaching. And I was like, you know what? Why not me? Why can't I do it? So, and I had so much free time because of remote learning. I didn't have the big commute to the city. So, like, when the school day was over, I was already home and I was like, okay, let me start a podcast and kind of see where that goes. And so I started the Growth Mindset Gal podcast about 4 years ago at this point. And at first, it was just me and the mic, and I was sharing things that I was learning from my own therapy sessions. And I started going to therapy about, I think, either 4 or 5 years ago at this point, too. And based on what I was learning and what I was sharing, I wanted to share those stories to help other women that were maybe going through the same thing so they wouldn't feel alone. And
Mhm.
then through that, I had, amazing then guests come on and sharing their expertise. You were one of them as well. We're doing a little podcast swap today, which is so
Yeah.
fun. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, well now I have the podcast and I love sharing and talking to fellow coaches and things like that. I was like, okay, now maybe I can take it a step further. And since I do have a passion for like, mindset and, emotional intelligence and things like that, now can I help teach people in that realm as well? And so then I started to become a mindset coach and to help people because I went through that own journey
Mhm.
myself and realizing sometimes we get in our own way. And we've talked about this before, and
Yep.
realizing that we have the power to cultivate the life that we deserve because I did that through my own journey as well. And I wanted to help then other women do the same thing. And so, I was recovering from, anxious thoughts. I was recovering from perfectionism, recovering from people pleasing tendencies, and realizing those were just things that I learned throughout my life that maybe served me in another season of my life, but then were no longer serving me anymore, and really kind of reclaiming my power in that way. And so then from that journey, I wanted to then also help women as well go through that.
I love that. And I'm having this remembering now of when we first started kind of chatting back and forth on Instagram because we both launched our podcast at the same time. And
Yes.
and
Hmm.
reminding me because I was talking to somebody the other day and I'm like, I don't know, did I just celebrate 3 years? Did I just celebrate 4 years? I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
like,
where am I at?
it's great. So listeners, we just passed 4 years. But I would always like see Allie posting like, hey, episode 200 is out. I'm like, hey, my episode 200 is out too.
Yeah.
It's it's the same. And we were on this like same podcast trajectory, and then we kind of
Yeah.
started chatting from there. So congrats on 4 years. We've been at it
Thank
for
you, you as well. Because you know what's so funny? I think having a podcast too was such an accomplishment. Because did you ever hear this? I'm sure you did, where it was like, if you get past like episode 7 of your podcast, like that means you made it. Because so many people will start a podcast and then like after 7 episodes, they were like done
yeah,
with it and then they moved on. So we're far past that. So like,
absolutely.
congratulations to us.
Yep. And for those of you who are just getting started, keep going. Because I know
Yeah.
like when people ask me to come on their show or whatever, I always go and I look. I'm like, do you post consistently? And have you like and for me, I'm like looking for more than 50 or so episodes. Then because
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
tells you
That's
there.
commitment. You're in it.
But yeah, I mean, it happens so quickly. And I think a lot of people, we were talking about this on your show, like the whole like trajectory of time and things. But it's like when I look back, I'm like just kind of flowed,
Yeah.
episode 50 came really quick and
Yeah.
you learn a lot on the way. So yeah, anyway, that's really cool. How has your background as a teacher shaped like not just like the way that you coach, but I know you're also like big into like emotional intelligence. Like what have your students been able to kind of teach you about that and lend to the experience for you?
Oh yeah, like you know what's so great about being a teacher is like yes, you are the teacher, you're the educator, but you also learned so many things. And I actually started the emotional intelligence journey within my teaching field because I actually learned about growth mindset and emotional intelligence when I was doing my master's. And because I never heard of that before, I was like growth mindset. I was like emotional intelligence. What even is that? Like I don't. These are foreign words to me.
Yeah.
And it's actually hilarious that like it made such a huge impact on my life. And, I actually did, when I first learned about, growth mindset and emotional intelligence, I was like, you know what? I wish I learned this, earlier in my life. And
Oh
so
yeah.
as I was going through it, I was like, you know what? This should be also a part of like, teaching the whole student. And, because a part of the learning journey is like understanding it's okay to make mistakes, understanding that it's okay to be a novice at a new skill, and it's okay not to be perfect all of the time. And because, a lot of students, we grow because we were students once too, that like this kind of outcome, it's the perfectionism, this high achieving are all, it's good skills, but then that leads to the burnout. I think that's why so much of, women here who are adults were like, we're burnt out. Well, why? It's because of the way that we grew up. And so one of the most powerful kind of teaching skills I remember, and I did this, way back when I first started learning about it, was I had the students open up their notebook and I was like, make a T chart. Just put a T in your notebook. And I was doing it with them, like I was doing it on the board with them.
Mhm.
And I told them, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to think of a skill that you're not good at. Like right away, any skill that you're not good at. And so everyone wrote down their skill. And then I go, okay, now that you wrote down the skill that you're not good at, why do you think that? Take a minute. Why do you think you're not good at that skill? Has someone told you or an experience showed you you're not good at that skill? And so they sat there and they thought about it. And I was like, I would like you to write down either what someone has said or the experience you had with that skill to make you think or believe you're not good at that skill. So they did it. They wrote it down. I said, no one has to share this. Like, this is a you activity. Okay. And then I told them, okay, the next step you're going to do is I want you to exit out or I want you to erase it. I want you to exit out and I want you to erase it. And they all looked at me, what are you talking about? And I was like, exit out and erase it. And they go, okay. And they exited out and erased it. Okay. And so now after you did that, I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath in, hold it for 2, and then exhale for 4. Just like a little reset. They go, okay, they did it. And now I said to them, now I want you to reframe that skill, like reframe what someone said to you and that skill or that experience. Reframe. And I did like an example, on the board. And so they rewrote it. They said, for some examples, students like, I'm not good at math. And I was like, okay, why did you say, okay, what happened with why are we not good at math? Maybe it was test scores or what have you. And I was like, okay, now let's reframe it. Okay. They go, how do I even reframe it? And I go, okay. Now you're learning a skill, correct? And they go, yeah, we're learning. Put the word yet at the end of it. And they go, just yet? And I'm like, put it there. So they said, I'm not good at math yet. I said, okay, now put the period there. They did it. And I was like, now we reframed it. They go, but what does the yet do? And I was like, well, the yet shows that you haven't done it yet, that you have the potential to get there. When you say I'm not good at something or I cannot do something, you immediately cut the cord of you having the opportunity to learn something.
True.
And they were like, oh, and these are like 12, 13, like they're middle school. Like that, I was like, what? And I was like, yes, it's the power of yet. And I learned about the power of yet from Carol S. Dweck. She's like the
Mhm.
master of the mindset. And it was the power of yet that if you cut yourself off from the learning opportunity saying, I can't, I won't, I don't,
Right.
you completely just like, that's it. Then your brain goes, oh, we're not doing this. Okay, we're done then. And you become that very unresourceful state of not being open to learning new things, whatever that new skill may be. And then it kind of becomes a part of your identity. When you say like, oh, I was just never a math person, I don't like math, it becomes then a part of your identity. And then that limits you. And so when they put the new skill and then said yet, then I said, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to take out this piece of paper and I want you to put it either in your locker, your agenda book, wherever that you see it a lot. That way, whenever you open it up, you open your locker, your agenda book, you always have that reminder of the power of yet. And they're like, okay. And I even told some of them, color it, design it if you want, like really make it something. And from that day on, especially with that class, like I remember a student would be like, oh, I can't do this. And I would hear a student in the corner be like, yet, from the back, be like, can't do
Yeah.
it yet. And it became like monotonous where I'd be like, you in my room, words that or should not be spoken, or like the can't, the won't, the don't, any of those like limiting belief talks. Because what happens is when we limit ourselves, right, even just in regular normal school, it's like you cut off you reaching your highest potential in whatever that means. And that always stuck with me because I even did it with them. I did it along with them, like meaning that we're all kind of going through this like growth mindset strategy together to realize that everyone's a work in progress, everyone's learning,
Hmm.
everyone's growing together, and no one's perfect, right? Not even the educator, not even the teacher. And so when you realize that, like, you don't have to be perfect, it opens up the door to, like, oh, I can make a mistake and I can learn from it. Oh, great, I have a pencil, I can erase it. I can try again. And going through those motions of making learning accessible, making learning okay, because we were all taught that, like, no, if you get a bad grade, then you're not smart, right? If you make
Hmm.
a mistake, horrible person automatically, right? And so creating that space in the classroom, saying that learning is a process, and I always just want you to try to do
Okay.
better, to try and to learn the new skill. And I'm always going to then talk about your progress rather than the outcome was
Hmm.
one of the biggest things, realizing that, like, for example, one of the biggest things I learned with education that, like, we always praise the high grades of like the 95, like, yes, like, good job, but we never praise the 75, but that 75 for that student could be their 95.
Hmm.
They worked really hard on said project, and maybe they were getting 60s. Now all of a sudden they're getting 75s. That's still progress. That should still be celebrated as much as a 95. So it's
Yeah.
more about the progress rather than the outcome. And instead of praising the outcome or the accomplishment, it's praising the progress, being like, I know you worked so hard on this. I know you spent so many hours, and I know you put all of your effort into this, and you've grown so much. Like talking in that way rather than being, you're so smart, you're so intelligent. It was more like, I loved how much you've grown from this. I love how
Yeah.
much you improved from this. And using that in my own classroom then helped me then shift that kind of trajectory into then going into the coaching field, not necessarily doing it with, lesson plans, but then talking about more as mindset as a great trajectory of how to navigate your life to live a more fulfilling and life of abundance rather than a scarcity
Right.
mindset.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, it's easy to like tell our kids or students or whatever those things, and it makes sense. And then so many adults are not embodying that themselves, and we're still so
Mhm.
attached to the outcome or to success equaling dollars and money in the bank or
Mhm.
that kind of stuff that we forget to celebrate.
Yeah.
And look at how far we've come and also have it be okay to reach for wherever that we're going. But like
Mhm.
you find that or you have any insights around that?
Oh yeah, because even as the adult in the room, like going through the motions, I always tell my students, like, you don't have to be perfect, like just work hard, like all the things that we always say. But then I look at myself and it's kind of a reflection of like, okay, am I doing perfectionism right now? Am I allowing grace like when I make a mistake, within my job or relationship? Am I doing that? Am I practicing, right? What I preach? And
Right.
so I always try my best to lead then by example.
Yeah.
And a lot of the parents, they talk to me and they say, yeah, like the students struggling with, like, perfectionism, they don't want to make a mistake, they're afraid to try, and they're like, how do I help them through that? And I always tell them, then lead by example, right, within your own home. When a mistake happens, right, acknowledge it and tell your kids that, you're not perfect. You're going to make mistakes too. Parents are learning. We're going through this process together. All those types of things where because kids absorb everything and they notice everything. And so that's kind of where you have to embody it in the practice of what you preach, where if they hear you say, hey, it's okay to make a mistake, but then when they themselves make the mistake and they freak out about it or what have you, then kids are like, well, then what's the truth here? What am I supposed to believe?
Have you joined the Becoming More Me community over on School yet? It is one of the fastest growing distraction-free platforms for learning and connection. And it's where the magic's happening for the Becoming More Me community as well. Inside, you will find a high vibe circle of heart-centered, ambitious entrepreneurs and professionals doing deep work to become who they truly feel called to be in life, in business, in love, health, and wealth, and doing it in ways that feel aligned, authentic, and full of pleasure. The community is packed with tons of valuable resources too that you can start using right away, as well as guidance to find the ones that are going to help you so that you don't need to waste time. We're talking tools, trainings, and practices to support your growth, all for free. Plus, you can find info on working with me more deeply, whether it's through one-on-one coaching, small group experiences, or the Becoming More Me with EFT program, as well as information on upcoming workshops and other events. To join, head over to school.com/discovery. That's SKOOL.com/discovery. Type in my name, Theresa, Lear, Levine, and you will find the Becoming More Me community right there. Click on it to join. I can't wait to welcome you to the community.
And I think, because I've been teaching, I think for about like 9 years now, I am seeing a greater difference of more of giving ourselves grace and that high achievement. Yes, you should hold yourself to a high standard, but then also give yourself grace when things happen. Because even a student one time asked me, they're like, giving yourself grace is all well and good, but then what about self-accountability? Like, if you're failing too much, shouldn't you be self-accountable to make sure like you're going back up and you're achieving things that you should do? And I was like, that's a great question. Again, 12 and 13-year-olds, I was like, that is a great inquiry to say because yeah, now what's the difference between self-accountability and giving yourself grace? And I think that's the discernment that you have to go through every single day. You make a mistake, you learn from it, you grow from it, maybe you ask for help, and you're taking action to improve the process.
Mhm.
That's giving yourself grace and holding yourself accountable. But if you're making the same mistake over and over and over again and just be like, I'm giving myself grace, but not making the improvement, that's where we start to get into that space of like, okay, but are you holding yourself accountable to the goals that you want to achieve right in this life? Understanding that, yes, there's going to be ebbs and flows of your life. There's going to be the peaks and valleys. Are you going to then be able to climb out of those valleys, out of, those ebbs and keep, you know, growing and learning? Or are you going to then become more of a fixed mindset, have that victim mentality, have that kind of blaming mentality where the world happens to me, not the world happens for me sort of
Yeah.
thing? And you get very limiting. That's where it's like, okay, like you gave yourself grace, but are you learning from it? Are you growing from it? Are you keep moving forward?
Mhm.
Because I think what starts to happen is not only just, students, but just like people in general, now all of a sudden we're giving too much grace to ourselves. And now we're like, oh, well, why am I stuck and not moving
Yeah.
forward? Thing.
I mean, I resonate with all of that. I also think a lot of people get confused there, thinking that like accountability and grace are opposites when they're
Yeah.
like dance partners, you know? Like you don't have to, it's like a both and situation again.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, it's grace is like I see that you're human and I see that you're doing your best and like kind of
Mm-hmm.
stops, right? And then accountability is like, and you're still responsible for your choices and your healing and how you show
Mm-hmm.
up. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
missing piece there for a lot of people is integrity, you know?
Yes.
Like
Mm-hmm.
integrity becomes the thread that then ties it all together.
Yeah.
Not about perfection, more about like alignment, you know? Because and being honest with yourself. Because I know that there's times when like I have like dropped accountability on something and it wasn't in alignment anymore. Like it just like,
Mm-hmm.
doing the thing wasn't right. And I had to kind of get back into integrity with myself of like, I don't even want this anymore. Or like
Right.
what What do I really want?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think integrity can be the missing piece there. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. And like having the clarity within the integrity, it's like, are you in alignment with what works for you? And I speak to so many people that like they get so consumed by like time and maybe even money investment where they're like, I've been here for so long, I worked on this for so long, how can I leave it? But you no longer feel aligned with it. It doesn't serve you more. Even you said like, I maybe just don't want to do this anymore. And like that is okay, but people stay in whatever that means for them because they're like, I spent so much time. It's kind of like that time loyalty or that investment loyalty where it's like, if it doesn't work or align with you anymore, it's okay to figure out what does. And maybe
Yeah.
something that worked for one season of your life, it's not working for that season of your life anymore. And being able to kind of let go of
Right.
those things as well. I think learning discernment, and discernment means making the decision of, does this still align with the life that I want to live or it doesn't anymore. And that means, that
Yeah.
can mean jobs, that can mean skills, that can mean mindset, that can mean people. If things and patterns, if they don't align with you anymore, even though they've been with you for so long, it's okay to let go of them, which that's going to be hard. So I'm like, oh, okay, see you later. You know what I mean? But it's more of like, you get to go through the decision process of, does this situation still work for me? And if it doesn't, then you create clarity around it. Maybe sometimes you even have to have conversations with people around it to then be able to move on to something that's going to fill up your cup more or reach your highest potential or whatever that means for you.
For sure. So you touched a little bit on like perfectionism and your experience there. And
Mhm.
you also mentioned a little bit about like anxiousness or anxiety, burnout, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. What was like the backstory there for you? And was there a moment when like you just knew you couldn't keep doing things the same way or things started to shift for you?
There was a moment in time where it was so interesting. So I never realized like what anxiety was. It was just like that high achieving child. Like that was the kid in my family that had the good grades. I was the good girl. I always did everything right, like all of those things. And so now I'm in my mid 20s and I'm literally on the train to work and everything was peachy keen. Like family's doing well, friends and family are doing well. My relationship was doing well. The job was like everything was fine.
I
But
would
I
call
felt
it high functioning anxiety, and it's what myself and most of the people in my world recognize too. So, yep, continue.
that was high functioning anxiety at its finest. And I was sitting on the train and I just felt this immense like emotion overcome me of just like heaviness and worry and sorrow. Cause I was like that hypervigilance, and we talked about this before, like that hypervigilance of just
Yeah.
like I need to be prepared for everything all of the time. I need to be perfect all of the time. I need to be everything for everybody all of the time. And that's what gives me value. If I'm not, because I always had the I guess even the reputation, even in my friend group, of like Allie is always has her life together. She's the friend that I go to. She's the advisee. She's the one I go to ask for advice. She always has her life together. She's always prepared. Like my parents would always say, I'm so glad I never have to worry about you. That's what they would
Uh,
always, and I was like, as a kid, you're like, yay, but as an adult, you're like, ooh. And so all of a sudden, like this kind of realization came crashing down. It's like, but what if I'm not perfect? Do I lose my value? What if I'm not great all the time? Where I was always worrying about everybody, making sure everybody's good. Like I was the friend that's checking in, like making the plans, that sort of thing. And I was like, but who's there? Who's there for me?
yeah.
Like, what if I'm not okay? And it was just this like I think that realization brought up so much heaviness and anxiety that I'm not kidding, on the verge of like tears, like on the Long Island Railroad. And I was like, hold on. this is this is not a way to live. I think I reached the peak of like that burnout. You know what I mean? Where I was like, something's not right. And so I I even texted my sister and I was like, is this like normal? Like I feel like so weird. And she was like, no, like I don't think I think you're getting into that burnout. And I was like, yeah, I think I am. And so I actually from that moment started looking into therapy for anxiety because anxiety came up for me from perfectionism, from people pleasing, from having to be everything for everybody. And I
Hmm.
thought my anxiety gave me control, but really what it gave me was just like burnout and exhaustion and fatigue all of the time. So I started going then to therapy because I was like, all right, I need to like talk to a professional, like a non-biased professional about what's going on. And then that's when she kind of basically told me, she was like, your work ethic's great and you want to be there for everybody is fantastic. And, being a good person is so important, but at what expense and cost to you? And I
Right.
was like, to me? She's like, yeah, you matter. And I was like, oh, I matter. Okay. I forgot that I actually matter. Because also, too, I was being everything for everyone in not only my personal life, but then as a teacher in my professional life, too. I had to be the perfect teacher all of the time, could never make a mistake. If I got bad feedback, I was like, I'm a terrible teacher. Like it was simply improvements. I go, I'm just a terrible teacher. I should just quit tomorrow. Like all those like limiting inner critic beliefs came out. And so through therapy and it was talk therapy, just like talking it out, kind of unraveling all of the things. And I learned that like my value is simply being here. Like my value is existing. My value should not be being everything for everyone all the time. And if I can't be there for everyone all the time, I lose value. Like I couldn't even, if I was like feeling anxious or feeling sad, I would never go to anybody. I'd be like, I'd go in my room, I close my door. I felt that I could never share being weak with anybody because I was always the person that had everything together. I was the rock of the family. Weirdly enough, being the youngest, I was like, I was the rock, I was the foundation of the family. And so when I started going to therapy, I didn't even like tell anybody at first either because I was like, well, in my brain, I go therapy's weakness
Little
when
bit
I
of
first found
shame
out.
there.
Oh, shame came up. But then once I started telling people what I've learned from therapy, the conversations that I was having, it came more of a freedom that I was like, yeah, I'm working on myself. And that's like a strength for working on myself.
Yeah.
And realizing that anxiety held me to such a control, it like consumed my life 24/7. And I realized I didn't have to live like that. I realized that anxiety and control is just an illusion. Like I can't control everything in my life. I can control how I respond to life, but I can't control everything in my life. And learning to surrender and learning to let go and acceptance of things are going to be the way that they are. And I can't solve every problem. I can't solve everyone's problem. I can't fix everybody and be there for everybody. And that is okay. So
Absolutely.
that's one of like the biggest like takeaways from like that anxiety experience to then going to therapy and realizing those things.
Yeah. Was there a particular like tool or strategy that really like radically shifted your relationship with anxiety?
Oh, definitely. The big thing I always would tell people in the beginning of my journey was journaling because I had to get to know Allie. I had no idea who she was without anxiety. I was like, who is she? What does she really want? And so that was one of the things my sorry, that was one of the things my therapist told me is like, well, like get to know you. I was like, okay. So I sat down. It was every Saturday. I started like weekly rather than daily. I would sit down, get my cup of coffee, like sit in sunlight, like by a window, and I would just start brain dumping. She was like, you don't need a structure because I'm very type A. She's like, you don't need a structure, just brain dump for like 5 to 10 minutes from the week, see what comes up. And so then I was like, oh, okay, fantastic. So I would just like sit down, have my coffee, and then I would just start brain dumping. And I started having conversations with myself. And I would write something down. I'd be like, Allie, we could have handled that better. Or like, oh, Allie, you did, yep, that was a great choice. Like you start like having a strong internal dialogue, which
Yeah.
came from journaling and reflecting on my week. Then all of a sudden, it didn't need to be in the journal anymore. Then it became so strong that I was able to kind of like live stream like my dialogue like in the moment when things would happen. I'd be like,
Yep.
okay, Allie, like hold on a minute. Like if I was feeling anxious, let's say, I'd be like, all right, we got to ground ourselves. What can we do to ground ourselves? One of the big things is gratitude. Anxiety can't exist with gratitude. So I'd be like, all right, what am I like, grateful for today? Were the things like my commute's beautiful, the weather's nice, I have a cute dress on, like those like little minor things to kind of ground myself back into reality. And then if like a big emotion came up, I was like, okay, we can feel the emotion, but now where is it coming from? Like we talked about this too, like that curiosity of like when things come up, Where are they coming from? Because my body, my emotions, they're just trying to tell me something.
Hey, I'm just popping in to remind you real quick. You don't have to keep navigating the overwhelm, self sabotage, or emotional chaos alone. If you've been feeling stuck, whether it's in your business, your relationships, or with your own health, there is a next aligned step. And I would love to help you ditch the overwhelm and find it. You can book a totally free, no pressure insight call with me. This is a quick 15-minute one-on-one call where we will zero in on what's really been keeping you stuck. And I will share simple but powerful insights that can help you move forward with way more confidence, ease, and alignment. All you need to do is head to gamechangingconversation.com and grab your spot. I truly can't wait to connect with you and support you in your next chapter of becoming. Now let's get back to the episode.
Because anxiety lives up here. You're always up high in the anxiety spiral, and learning to ground
Living from the
myself.
neck up.
Yep. And bringing it back down to groundedness is what helped me go through those motions when the big emotions came up. And also not like I would always catastrophize everything too. So from journaling, writing out the moments and being like, well, is that worst case scenario? If it was worst case scenario, would I survive it? Like those were that sort of things, because perfectionism was like that all or nothing kind of mentality. And then once I started talking to myself and talking through those moments that I would have throughout the day or the week, I go, yes, but would I survive it though? Would I be okay if X, Y, and Z happened? Would I be okay if I didn't prepare enough for this? Would I be okay if I let go of that friendship? Like what were some of the things I can move and I can grow through?
Yeah.
And it was like more of journaling helped me reclaim my own power of like intuitiveness rather than anxiety, because anxiety was always based in fear and control, where intuitiveness was more like that whisper, that guidance, that warmth, that yes, I can, you know what I'm doing and, move in kind of an aligned way, but I'm not consumed by the fear of the failure or the judgment or the perfectionism.
Love that. I love
Okay.
that. So, how are you like working with the people in your coaching business now, and how are you helping people there?
Yeah, one of the a great like story with a recent client of mine was she wanted to work on like right perfectionism and people pleasing, like setting boundaries and like reclaiming her power, because she felt the same way where she was given everything to everybody. She's got to be everything for everybody, and learning like to say no, and learning how to create in your everyday that's like a little piece of you is in like every single day, because she felt like there wasn't any piece of her in any of her days. So when we were talking, I asked her, I was like, is there any time in your day that's like for you? Because she was feeling super overwhelmed with personal life, professional life, like always grabbing at her to do something. And I said, is there a time of your day where it's just for you? And she was like, no. And then she wanted to set boundaries with people in her personal and professional life. And one of the things I told her was like, well, do you have boundaries with yourself? And she was like, no, I don't have. What do you mean having boundaries with myself? I was like, well, do you have boundaries within yourself of how you are going to treat yourself? Because if you can't set boundaries with yourself and how you want to treat yourself, how could you expect to set boundaries then with other people and then uphold those boundaries that you set? When she sat with it, she goes, oh, I never really thought of it, because she never thought of herself. So I told her, like, because we're not doing homework, but I was like little bits of like curiosity moments and
Yeah.
trying moments throughout the week. I was like, set aside, if you can, even just 5, maybe even 10 minutes of your day, wherever in your day, to do something that you enjoy for yourself.
Hmm.
And there's no outcome for it. It's just you, it brings you joy. Simple as I gave her an example for me, like I always love to read in the morning. That's like my time just to start
Yep.
my morning off and read. There's no outcome. And she goes, okay, I can do that. And so she started to do that. And then she came back to me, but she goes, when I use that 5 to 10 minutes of my time, because she carved it out, which was great, but her phone was going off. Friends are texting her. You're not friends, family members were texting her, and she would have to
I didn't
like stop.
actually carve out the time or have a boundary around it.
Nope. She would pick up her phone, text, someone back or what have you. And I go, okay, but why did you feel the need to answer the people that were texting you. She
Right.
goes, well, her anxiety was, if I don't answer them, what if they needed me and I couldn't be there for them and then something bad happened?
Mm,
And I was like, that's very valid. I could understand that, but that's that anxiety of sense of control, right? That's holding you in. And that's sometimes anxiety and like perfectionism, even people pleasing goes into that kind of catastrophizing, irrational kind of thinking base of like, if I don't answer them, what if something happens to them? But
right.
it's like, but you can't live in the what ifs. You have to live in the now.
Right.
And it's 5 to 10 minutes of your day simply for you.
Yeah.
And
Otherwise,
she
you're
goes,
reacting to those memories like we talked about before.
uh-huh, you're going to react to them. And I was like, put your phone on do not disturb. The world's not going to end because you are on do not disturb. Because that's what I thought too. I was like, if
My,
I'm
my
not
phone is like
superwoman,
98% of the time in do not disturb.
me too. Now I'm like, yeah, me too. And she goes, okay, I'm going to try that. So the next session, I asked her, I was like, okay, did we carve out that 5 to 10 minutes? She goes, I did. And I was like, okay, did you then put your phone on do not disturb and no one bothered you? She goes, yes, I did. And so I simply asked her, well, how did that make you feel? She goes, I loved it. It was quiet for once. I was able to feel peace, joy within myself. And I asked her, I was like, did the world end like you thought it would because your phone was on do not disturb and you had 5 to 10 minutes of your time for yourself? She's like, no, the world did not end. And I was like, and it won't. Like, if you go offline, the world's not going to end. If some days you have a bad day and you can't show up at 100%, like we feel a lot of the times that we need to be superwoman. And if we're not superwoman, the world is going to end if we are not the way that we think we're supposed to be. It doesn't. The world keeps going. And then I said to her, okay, now carve out at least then 15 minutes instead of 5 to 10. Like, can we expand it a little bit? She goes, I think I can do that. And I was like, on Do Not Disturb. And she did it. And when she came back to me, she actually asked me, she goes, well, what if my family members and friends go, well, why aren't you answering me? You can, I was like, just communicate it to them. Say, hey, I would like 5 to 10 minutes of my day for myself, and I'm gonna put my phone on do not disturb, and I will get back to you when I'm done with all that. But this is gonna be my time. And I told her, I was like, you have to stand by that because people who don't adhere or like your boundary is usually the people taking advantage of the boundary not being there. But
Right.
fairly enough, people do need to then also get used to the boundary, right? Like they're not also not the villain. So you might need to just not remind them, but still be communicative of why the boundary is there and the times that are allotted. And then if people accept it and they're actually there for you and they're not taking advantage of the boundary that wasn't there, they will come around and they will do it. The people that are completely like against that boundary and they don't try to understand you or why you're doing it are the people that were taking advantage of the boundary not being there. And
Mhm.
they're essentially, I don't want to say like using, but they're taking advantage of you and your skills or your time or your energy. And that's not a reciprocal kind of relationship that you want in your life, especially if you're trying to heal from like burnout and people pleasing. And one of the greatest things I told her, I was like, okay, setting boundaries though with other people, it's kind of like a video game where maybe setting the boundaries with like hers was like her mom. And I was like, well, that's like maybe like the final boss. Maybe let's not go to mom right away because she may be the most resistant to it and that can discourage you, right? I go, who would be the person that would really accept the boundary like right away? She goes, my fiance. Fantastic. Level one boundary setting. Say to him whatever boundary you want to put in place and see what works. Because the more experience you have with any skill, right, the better you get at it and the more comfortable you get at that, skill that you're doing. In this case, it's setting boundaries. She starts setting boundaries with her fiance. She came back to me. She goes, oh, it worked out really well. He listened. He's going to try and do it, so on and so forth. The next step were some of her friends. I was like, okay, now with some of your friends, how are you going to set up that boundary? And that was her like not answering like text messages right away, like giving herself time to respond. If she was busy, you don't have to answer the friends right away. Like say, hey, I'm going to answer you in like 20 minutes. Do
Right.
like that.
And she said it worked out really well. She also, with her friends, sometimes was like the friend like me, where like everyone goes to you for all the problems and you have to try and like fix their problems all the time. I said, you don't. You don't have to fix their problems. You can be a listening ear. That's okay too. And you can even ask, my favorite thing was to ask people, do you want before the conversation starts, do you want my advice or you just want me to listen? Which one do you want? So that way I know
Great question.
how I can support you. Which would you like? So she started doing that with her friends and opening up that communication, right? And her friends became understanding, right? You're not going to be a burden. It's going to be okay if you also communicate your needs as a friend. Okay. Now we got past that stage. The last stage was, yep, the final boss was mom. And it was a little bit of back and forth, which is, I mean, mother-daughter relationships. I mean, that's that's
Sure.
how it goes. But I told her, I was like, realize that you setting the boundary, even with mom, it doesn't make you a bad person. It does not make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a burden on anybody for, especially when we struggle with people-pleasing tendencies, it doesn't make you a burden to set boundaries. Because if you want to be a good person for all the people that you love and support, you
Right.
have to have those boundaries in place. The time, the energy, the people, you need to have those boundaries set in place if you want to be that good person for all the people that you love and support. Like it's two things can be true, like we always say. Like, yes, you can be helpful, but you have to help yourself at the same time. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think it was that realizing, I think people pleasing comes from a little bit of the root of it is that you are only worthy when you are helpful. And I think women learn that from a very young age. You're only worthy if you are helpful and you are of service. And because she told me she thought self-care was selfish.
Mm.
That was one of her
There's a
biggest
lot
things.
of that going around.
Yeah, a lot of that going around. And I told her, but again, we kind of did that practice and exercise. I was like, who told you that? Why do
Mm.
you think that self-care is selfish? Did anyone tell you that self-care was selfish? Or did you learn maybe from experience from society that self-care is selfish? She goes, "Oh yeah, definitely learned that." And I was like, "But do you inherently think that's true?"
Right.
He was like, "No, I think self-care is like a very good thing." I was like, "Okay, good. So then do it. Do the self-care because if you want to be of service to people, you have to be of service to yourself first. That way you can be at your greatest potential to then be of service. And I think a lot of women struggle with that because of the way we're brought up. But just because we struggled with it and that's the way we're brought up as a child, now I always say, like, we're grown women. We now get to decide if the stories that we kept telling ourselves growing up, do they still align with our life now?
Right.
And we have the power to then rewrite the story if we want to, because when people kind of come into the healing world, they go, my parents did this to me. My siblings are the way I am, the way that I am. My past is what creates me. The past is the reason that I am today, which, yes, that's true. But then now the fun part is you have the power to then navigate and create the future. Once you are now aware of your patterns, limiting beliefs from the things that happened to you in the past, now that the awareness, that's fantastic. Now we can move into the future to then make the changes in our lives that we want to make the changes of.
Absolutely. Oh, so much is possible for us, right? And there's so many
Yeah.
powerful ways that we can make all of these shifts. This has been a really amazing conversation. And I feel like for anybody who is listening, who's like, I want to hear more of this, definitely go check out Allie's podcast, The Growth Mindset Gal, because we had another conversation covering so many of these things, but in different angles. So you can really enjoy going deeper by checking out her podcast too. And where else can people find you if they want to see more of what you're up to or learn how they can work with you or be involved in your Growth Mindset Gal community?
Well, thank you. And Teresa, thank you so much for having me on. And the place that you can find me, the easiest is my Instagram. It's at the Growth Mindset Gal. It's my major hub. And I have my website as well. It's the growthmindsetgal.com. And then we do have two communities. We have the Growth Method free and the Growth Method premium, where they're both memberships that I use via WAP. And they're the two memberships. It's for educational and community, reasons. And we talk all the time. We have conversations. There's also educational, as a teacher myself, there's educational resources on there. So wherever you are in your mindset journey and you want, more community and more guidance, those are the places that you can go.
That. I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. And, for everybody who's listening, I know we've got so many choices on podcasts that we can listen to today. So thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with me and Allie.
Yeah.
So
And again, thank you so much for having me on today.
absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.